So hello and welcome everyone. In this video, we will be discussing about the new section that has been introduced by Snap. So this video is to tell you all that there is no need to be nervous. We are covering everything here, that what is in the syllabus, what kind of questions can be expected. I have also added 2 sample questions for you guys so that you know what are you dealing with. Another good news is that there's nothing to be nervous about it. There would be like 10 questions with little cases and they would be like 3 to 4 lines maximum. And then some situations would be given as options as to what course of action you can take. So it's pretty chill. It's simple. You just have to apply your ethics, morality, and values. You have to see situations from that lens. At the same time, you cannot go extreme. You have to essentially be a good decision maker here. And if you have given ZAD before, that sort of decision making thinking is going to help you guys. But it's going to be fairly simple. 3 to 4 lines of cases, 10 questions, 4 options. That's it. So let's delve in. I'll first introduce what the pattern is, what the expected syllabus topics are. And syllabus topics are also declared by the SNAP themselves. So we have listed them down here. And then we'll deal with 2 questions also. And those 2 questions are of good level so that you know that, okay, this might be the upper limit of what you are dealing with. Okay, so let's quickly delve in. Why is this section important? Because first of all, this is, guys, a distinct section now in your SNAP exam. Okay, so we used to have verbal data interpretation and those sections. We used to have 3 of those sections. Now this is a 4th section. So from verbal, 10 questions have been shifted here. So this is a distinct section and you will be tested distinctly. So it becomes important, obviously. Okay, this is not an additional or complementary section. This is a different, distinct section. Okay, so it's basically a dedicated section. Okay, and then candidates have to. So that means that we essentially have to include it in our preparation. We will be adding them in the mocks and sectionals as well. We will be having detailed classes and videos. But here is a brief introduction as to what it is. So that I was hearing that so some of you are a bit nervous about what it could be. And that's okay because it's something new. And whenever something new is suppose suddenly launched by an exam, there is a level of nervousness. This video is to basically ease that level because all of us have a moral compass and value analysis installed inside of us as human beings. We essentially know what is right and wrong. We just have to add it up with our good decision-making skills and choose a right option. That's it. Also, the questions will not take much time to read because you will have like 4 lines of question, maximum 5 lines of question, and then 2 lines or 1 lines of option. So you can do it quickly, right? Okay. So this section would assess basically how the candidates understand the ethical conduct, fairness, responsibility, honesty, and of course, as I said, decision making. So please do not view this section completely with the lens of ethics or values and just eliminate everything. You have to view it with the lens of ethics, but you have to combine it with good decision making. Okay, I will also discuss some traps that we tend to fall into. So let's move on. Okay, so this would be sort of the structure. You will have 10 questions. So you will have 10 questions. That means you will have 10 cases and typically 1 question per case that is expected. So 10 questions means 10 cases, 4-5 lines each. The case would be small. Do not expect the case to be okay. It's a very long case. It's like 10-20 lines, nothing like that. 4 to 5 lines, brief case, and then it is expected that brief options, 1 or 2 liners. Okay. Of course, the marking scheme is same as it goes in SNAP, +1 and -0.25 for incorrect answer. That is there. Question type would be situation case based and single correct answer. That much also we know. Nothing has been changed in this respect. Then section weightage is a part of SNAP 2026 overall scoring and it is separate. It is a separate section from QA, VARC and DAILR. This is a separate section, okay? It's not combined in any section. This is a distinct section. Like we have decision making in ZAT, we have this ethical sort of topic or a distinct section in SNAP from now on, from 2026. Okay, so this is the structure. Okay, now this preparation should focus on these topics. Why? Because these topics are basically listed down in your official site as well. You guys can check it out, but essentially this is exactly what is listed down. The focus area. So you can consider it your syllabus maybe, that this is how you have to look into it. So the focus area would be, of course, your ethical principles, personal and professional responsibility. So these focus areas are the areas from which questions can be made, from which cases would be made. So they'll test your ethical principle, they'll test your personal and professional responsibility. So you have to essentially choose options which make you appear, or not just make you appear, wherein you take responsibility. You cannot let anything go or leave anything, or just choose an option and say, okay, I choose not to do anything. You have to be responsible. Honesty and integrity, of course. Fairness and impartiality is very important, because there are certain cases where there are multiple candidates, multiple students, multiple vendors, multiple options between people and things, and you have to ensure that you are impartial and fair in all the decisions that you make. There cannot be any place for bias. Okay? Then respect for individuals, that is very important. A decision might seem right, but if that decision is disrespecting or impacting anyone negatively, it is suggested that such a decision should not be made. So respect is very important. Accountability is very important. You cannot make a decision and choose not to be answerable, or you cannot choose to not make a decision. Okay, this is essentially decision making and ethics. You have to take a step. So accountability is important. Conflicts of interest situations would be there. It is more likely that a question would come that there are conflicts of interest. You have to manage that situation. Then there is an angle of social responsibility as well. Suppose you're a corporate house and you have a certain level of social responsibility, and that is important. Okay. Then workplace ethics are also there. Of course, it is very common. We all work in corporates. We work in maybe government offices, etc. Wherever the workplace it is, it might be a school, it might be a coaching center, whatever it is. All the workplaces have certain ethics and they have to be followed. Then there can be situation-based decision making. So one thing, if you guys noticed, is that even from their official sources, it is quite apparent that decision making is a big part of it. Okay, so you can take it as mini decision making section, because you will essentially have 4 liners or maximum 5 liners of cases, and then you'll have 4 options. So decision making angle is very good. If you have prepared for that before, that thinking, that preparation, I believe is going to help you here as well. Okay, but we'll treat it as an individual section also. I'm just talking about the skill that you have. If you are well versed with decision making, it's definitely going to help you. Okay. So now this was also their recommendation from the site, that how to approach the question. They say that read every situation carefully and identify the people affected by it. So people or things affected by it, these are essentially your stakeholders, right? That much we know. So we have to identify all the stakeholders and then take a decision accordingly. That is there. Compare the available options based on fairness, responsibility, transparency, and consequences. This is very important. Okay, this is their formal instruction as well. So we weigh options based on transparency, responsibility, on the basis of ethics and values. Sometimes we forget to weigh in the consequences angle of it. Okay, why? Because consequences is not given in the case. Consequences are something that you have to think about by going an extra step. Okay, if I take this decision, what impact can it have? If you choose, say, option C, you'll have to think. If you choose vendor A over vendor B, then you have to think that, okay, what will be the repercussions? What will be the consequences? what might be the consequences, because you can only guess, but they have to be considered. Okay. Avoid selecting an option only because it provides the fastest result. So this is again a disclaimer. Do not choose an option because it's quick and easy. Choose an option because it's right on many fronts. Okay. A more appropriate response usually follows ethical principles while considering the effect on all states. So you have to, the name of the section is ethics, values and morality. So you cannot take shortcuts. The idea of this instruction is, please don't take shortcuts, okay? Because a shortcut option can be a trap here, because they are warning you beforehand. So we have to view things from the angle of ethics as well. Practice short case based questions under a time limit. This is very important, guys, because how many hours do you have for SNAP exam? You have just 1 hour, okay? And you have 60 questions, wherein you will have questions from your logical reasoning, mathematics, everything which might take time. So you have 10 questions in this section, okay? You might not even have a full minute. So this becomes very important, guys, that 4 lines are there, 5 lines are there. Please learn to read at once very quickly and understand it. Okay, this practice is important because time is of utmost importance. The only thing which I can imagine where people might struggle is not in solving the cases, but in failing to read them properly within the stipulated time. Because you'll have to read the options also properly. The options would not be very direct. We do not expect options to be very direct, right? There can be some nuance, there can be some layers. Some option would be half correct, some option would be like 80% correct. So we have to analyze all the 4 options. That is why this reading speed thing is very important. Now, if the question arises from your end that how can we ensure the reading speed, I think we all know the answer to it is practice. Okay, the more you practice, the better it is. And of course, at Cracku, we'll be adding the sectionals, the mocks, and we will be adding some videos, and there would be ample of practice for this section. But please make sure that you do practice. Please make sure that you quickly read and try to solve it. Okay, moving on. So I have just sort of prepared a general approach which you guys can follow. I'll just quickly cover it up. In detailed videos, we can go through it in a little bit of depth. So general approach, identify the stakeholders, very important. That is what they instructed as well, okay? Who is directly and indirectly affected. Please do not forget the people or things who are being indirectly affected as well, because they also have to be considered. Separate the facts from assumptions. This is very important. There are certain things that you will assume. There might be certain biases that you have, okay? That there could be a situation which is given to you and that topic is close to you as a person. You have opinions about that topic, okay? But please do not bring your bias in. Okay, so separate the facts. Facts would be everything that is given to you for sure in the case. Assumptions or biases would be something that you bring from your own end. Okay, don't read the intent or motive into the situation that isn't stated. So something that is not stated, don't make any assumptions. Check for conflicts of interest. That is very important, that if I'm taking this decision, will there be a conflict? If yes, then how can I tackle it? Maybe I can choose another option, okay? So that is there. Weigh the transparency. Whatever decision you make, please do not go for decisions because you will have certain options which would say, do not disclose this. No, who cares? Because suppose there is a piece of information, okay, and nobody knows it. Only you know it. And in future also, there is a very bleak chance that anyone would find out about that information. And there could be a tendency that why create hassle? Why make the situation complicated? Let's not divulge this information. Let's not disclose it. Wrong. Because that's not transparent. And even in your instructions for syllabus, which are being given by the official SNAP authorities, they have said that transparency is very important. Okay. Consider long-term consequence, not just immediate outcome. That is important, that we already covered, that do think of the consequence of your decision. Okay, choose the option that balances fairness with accountability. So you have to be fair, but in quest of being fair, suppose you are being fair, but you also have to be accountable, you are answerable, you should be able to justify your decision. Okay, that is very important, that if someone asks, do imagine in certain cases that if someone asks you to justify, will you be able to do that? If yes, then the choice that you have chosen is right and you can go ahead. Okay, so this justification angle is connected with your consequences. So this is a rough sort of an idea. Okay, so here I have listed down some common ethical principles. Guys, one thing I want to highlight is that sometimes what we believe is that it will be very complicated. We have to know a lot of theory for it. Okay, this new section is launched and we need to know a lot of theory. Wrong. This is a misconception. You don't need to. You basically, see, they have not launched or introduced a section which needs a lot of, knowledge from you, where you have to read and memorize stuff. They are testing your decision making. All you need to know is like basic principles. So these are some basic principles which I have listed down, like integrity, impartiality, accountability. We have been discussing them. Transparency, confidentiality, and proportionality. Like, your decision should not be extreme in any case, or should not be very feeble, right? So these are the things, like reporting your own error even if no one noticed it. So this is an example of integrity. Okay, not giving preferential treatment to a friend in a hiring decision. This is an example of impartiality. So you have to follow these principles. Accepting responsibility for a team's missed deadlines as its lead. If you are the lead, and you have to accept the responsibility if your team fails to deliver something. This is called accountability. This is an example. Disclosing a personal stake before voting on a proposal. This is transparency. If you have a personal stake in a situation, you must disclose it before the group. Okay, confidentiality, not sharing a colleague's personal disclosure without consent. This is confidentiality, right? You should disclose whatever you need to. You cannot disclose on behalf of others without their consent. So this confidentiality angle is also very good, because do not confuse confidentiality with transparency. You have the right to disclose your information, not anybody else's. Okay, proportionality, not escalating a minor mistake into a major disciplinary action. So not going to the extreme, right? Now again, these are some of the traps that I have listed, that which could be there. So I'll just briefly discuss them. This is just to give you a preview for how things could be, and what all you need to be prepared for, and what all you need to pay attention. Okay, so you have to pay attention to traps, of course. Okay, so first trap is picking the fastest or the most convenient option. That's not, they already gave in their instructions, right, that this is not something that you should do. Like, why it's usually wrong? Ethics questions test judgment under complexity, not efficiency. So ethical, if the topic, if the section is about ethics, ethics does not test convenience. Ethics does not test efficiency. Ethics tests what is your judgment under complexity. It does not need you to be quick. It needs you to be right. Okay? Picking the most extreme moral stance. This is also a common trap, that okay, the name of the topic is ethics, so let's go and pick out the most ethical seeming option. You can do that, but you are ignoring decision making here. What decision did you make? You just clearly picked out the option which appeared most ethical on paper. It's not always right. Suppose it often ignores the stakeholders or the context. It's an easy pick, and you will miss out on something if you do that. Ignoring the less visible stakeholders, that's very important, because what did we list? That there are direct and indirect stakeholders, and we have to keep them in mind. Treating reporting it as always correct. Sometimes internal resolution, confidentiality, or proportional response is more appropriate. So you cannot say that, okay, this issue is there, what action should be taken? There is some problem, okay? And what action should be taken? You chose to report it, and that's it. That's not a proper action. That's incomplete. You have to take a proactive action. You cannot be like, okay, I'll not take a decision, or I'll let it be, or I'll just go and report it. No, follow the course of action, okay? Assuming intent not stated in the case. So again, here is where your bias or something like that can come. Do not assume. You're given 4 to 5 lines. That is your world. You just have to think about that, okay? So yeah, okay. Now I have prepared a question, okay? And this is a little nuanced. I have not made it very simple or direct intentionally. And I have done this why? So that you guys know that even nuanced situations are easy. You do not need to complicate them, okay? You do not need to be scared. There is no need. Just read it out, okay? Meera is part of a hiring panel interviewing candidates for a position. One candidate is a former classmate she hasn't spoken to in years. She isn't sure the candidate even remembers her, and no one else on the panel is aware of the connection. Partway through the process, so here while we are reading, we know that this transparency angle is coming, that there is something she knows, and even the situation is like nobody would ever find out, but there should be this responsibility of informing, right? That's what we studied. That is why studying the basis is very important. Partway through the process, Meera notices she has been unconsciously rating this candidate's answers slightly more favorably than the others, even on questions where answers were comparably strong. So this is the situation. She knows a person, that person doesn't remember her, but when she analyzes, she feels that there might be a bias that she is showing towards this particular candidate because she knows him or her from before, okay? What is the most appropriate course of action? So while reading only, because we went through the theory, we went through the traps, we know it's a transparency issue. And she needs to be transparent. This much we know. Let's look at the options. Continue as normal. Cross. This is how quick you should be. Any option which is saying continue the status quo, don't do anything, remove it. It's 9 out of 10 times it is. Since disclosing connection now midway through the process could unfairly disrupt the evaluation. They will provide a reasoning for the wrong step. Do not fall for it. It's wrong. Disclose the connection? Yes. Seems right. And her noticed bias to the panel immediately and recuse herself from scoring this candidate going forward. Makes sense. This is very transparent. She is disclosing that there might be a bias because I know this person. So I'll not score this particular candidate. I will score all others because I do not know them from before. So there cannot be any bias. This is what you should do, right? So this is right actually. Privately adjust her own scoring downward for this candidate going forward to compensate for the bias she has noticed herself. Wrong. This is being non-transparent. You are trying to do something on your level. You are not even disclosing information. Another point is consequences. Later, what if it's discovered that she knew him or this person remembers her or anything might happen, okay? So there might be consequences. There might be questions on his selection. So you cannot just assume that there won't be any consequences. Say nothing, directly wrong. Directly do nothing, continue as normal, wrong. These are very, very common traps, guys. And if you know them, you are sorted. So B is the best choice because it follows transparency. This was a case of transparency, right? So I have another question also for you guys so that you can see that it's easy and whatever we have read so far. Here I have not even compiled everything. You know, I have tried to keep things very brief. Yet we were able to apply the information in a nuanced case. So that's how easy things can be for you guys as well. Okay, let's see. A company is choosing between two vendors for a large contract. One vendor offers a lower price but has a poor track record on worker safety. Though it has recently hired a new compliance officer and shown measurable improvement over the last 6 months. Okay, this is one vendor. The other vendor is more expensive, has a strong safety record, but has quietly lobbied against new safety regulations in the industry that would raise costs for smaller competitors. Okay? So these are the situations. One vendor is cheaper, one vendor is more expensive, but both of them have issues. The cheaper one has had a track record of not being very good to the workers. The second vendor, who's more expensive, is lobbying against, a certain thing which might harm the smaller vendors. So both of these people are doing something which is not right, even though the first one is showing measurable improvement, but that's just a stat that it is showing. We don't know what is exactly happening. So what option best reflects the most appropriate basis for this decision? So this person has to decide between vendor 1 and vendor 2, and both have issues. Okay. So a fair system would be to judge them on the parameters that are important for you. Suppose these three parameters are important and another parameter is the parameter of ethics. So you can judge them on the basis of that, but let's look at the option. Choose the cheaper vendor? No, wrong. You cannot simply choose someone. Since its recent improvement shows a genuine trajectory towards better practices, why is this wrong? Because you're making an assumption here. That improvement is there, so it will continue. We can forget what's in the past. You cannot do that. You have to be very systematic in your selection. And you have to ensure fairness also. You cannot deny the more expensive vendor just because this vendor is more expensive. You have to fairly judge for your own company's benefit and through the angle of ethics. Choose the more expensive, again it's wrong. You cannot simply choose one since its current safety record is stronger regardless of its lobbying activity. You cannot ignore that activity, right? It might have consequences on you if it's doing such an activity and that activity is repealed and that activity is objected against. Your company would be associated with it and you will also face some defamation. This can happen, right? Think about the consequences. Evaluate both vendors against verifiable documented evidence of current practices and consequences for workers rather than reputation, price, or intentions alone. So do not just evaluate them on the basis of what is given. Evaluate them on the basis of something which is verifiable, which is documented evidence. So you, even if things go in the wrong way, you have a documented evidence, you have a proof of why this particular vendor was chosen. So you are cleaning your trail. You are accounting for the consequences, because if the consequences would arise, you would have proof. And judge them on better, more parameters and then make a decision. That would be fair. That would also be smart, and you are also having a documented evidence for your decision. So this seems very good. Choose whichever better long-term contract terms. Okay, but here you are only taking in account one factor, right? There were multiple factors: the safety record, the lobbying activity, the consequences. How can you ignore everything? That's not correct at all. So this is wrong. Since both have some ethical concerns, then you're making a decision, okay, both are bad only, let me choose anyone. It's not correct. You have to evaluate them on all the parameters, not because it is just ethical, also because it would be a smart decision, it would be good for your company long term, and you would protect yourself and your company from consequences. Best option is C. So as you guys could see that these were quite nuanced cases, and yet we were able to deal with them only on the basis of the little theory that we covered, only on the basis of little rules that we kept in mind. So it's easy, right? And I hope that you guys learn from it. I hope this video was able to reduce some tension in you guys, some sort of nervousness it was able to deal with. And thank you, and see you in the next video.